Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of the PowettPlay Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Kieran Powell, and we have a very special guest today. I'd like to welcome Ottis Gibson to our podcast. How are you, Otis?
I'm very good, thanks, Jordan. Thanks for having me on.
No, an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I can't wait to get started. I just want to get going, really, in terms of where did your cricket start from initially, or your love for cricket?
From a very young age. From the time I was 9 years old, I'd made a decision I wanted to be a cricketer. Back in the 80s, West Indies was the best team in the world. Greenwich, Haynes, Lloyd, Marshall, Garner, Roberts, Holding. All of those guys were, Viv Richards, Sir Vivian, all of those guys were heroes to us growing up in that era. And coming from where I came from, West cricket, I discovered I had the talent for cricket at a very young age, and that was the thing that was going to get me out of my circumstances and take me to where I am now, and look after myself and my family. And it will be a similar story for a lot of other cricketers around that time, even now, I suspect,
Yeah. So where did you start? What was your first team?
Well, I started in the street first in my little village called Spring Head. We had test matches in the street. Back in the 80s in Barbados, there was one television station that's not often brought cricket, but cricket was brought on the radio.
Yeah.
And you had to sort of everybody would crowd round a radio and listen to cricket from Leeds or from the Wacker in Australia or whatever. And then we would listen to the cricket late at night before we went to school in the morning. And then when we come home from school in the afternoon, we would go and play a test match in the street outside the house. That street would be Lords or Helenley or like I said, the Wacker or whatever. And that's where the love came from, to be honest, And then I went to primary school. My primary school didn't have a cricket ground. We had a lot of good cricketers, but we didn't have a cricket ground. So we used to use a club field in Orange Hill, St. James. I went to a primary school called St. Silas Primary School. Lots of people that have gone on to play some decent level cricket went to that school as well. So we would go to school and then we would have our games, or what you call PE. We would have our PE at St. Silas Cricket Club at the ground there, and that's where we we started to develop some skills into cricket. And then so where we lived in Spring Head, we got relocated to a place called Sion Hill, where myself and Passport Drakes grew up in the same street. I don't know if there's ever been a situation in international cricket where two people that are not related have played international cricket from the same street. Actually, three people. There's myself, there's Passport Drakes, and Ryan Hurley. We all grew up in the same street in Sion Hill, And again, when we got to Sion Hill, they had a playing field right next. So I grew up there. There's this Avenue 1, Avenue 2. The playing field is in the middle of those two avenues. Vassborough is in Avenue 1, I'm in Avenue 2. Wow. And again, there's loads and loads of test matches went on. That was at Sion Hill playing field.
Wow, that's really amazing.
But can you tell us about that relationship with Vassie? Because obviously, I know personally, but obviously the viewers don't know. And you and Vassie sort of had lots of parallels in your career, obviously being same street, playing for Barbados, playing for West Indies, playing in South Africa, playing county cricket.
Yeah. Look, if you look at, even if I think if you went and looked at our stats, they're very, very similar. We were very similar cricketers, and what we did was we sort of polarized Sion Hill at the time, because half the people like Vassie and think Vassie is gone, and half the people like me and they think that I'm gone. And when we play against each other, it's like a little mini war, But Vassie and I, we sort of grew up together. We were good mates together. Then, like everything else, you fall out, then you fall back in, and so on. And but the one thing that we've always had with a real passion for cricket, So Vassie went to England first. Then I went to the club that he went to in England. Then I went to South Africa before him. Then when I left South Africa, I recommended him to the club that I went to in South Africa at Border. at Border Cricket Club in South Africa, in East London. Then he played county cricket together. We ended up playing for West Indies together in '95. I got picked on the tour before him, but he was playing for Sussex, I think, at the time.
Right.
Winston Benjamin left that tour. Winston Benjamin went home from that tour, and Bassi got called up from Sussex. So we ended up playing for, I don't think we played an international game together, but we ended up being in the West Indies team at the same time together, you know.
Yeah.
So we're still good mates now, you know. I spend a lot of time with his son Dominic, you know, and we're still good mates now.
Oh, fantastic. In terms of like, obviously you mentioned your relationship, but who was the most instrumental person in terms of into getting into professional cricket?
Wow. So I've got a best friend in Barbados called Henderson Brooms. Paul might know him because he's a chairman selectors. He's chairman selectors for Barbados. And we went to school at Ellerslie together. That's another story. At Ellerslie School is myself, Philo Wallace, and Sherwin Campbell. We all went to school. I'm older than them by a year, I think. And we all were at school at the same time, playing in the same school team. And then Sherwin and I got picked for West Indies together in '95 from Ellerslie School. But Henry Brooms, I always tell people, was of all the cricketers in our era there, growing up at the same time, Henry Brooms to me was the best of all of us. He had the best cricket brain. He could read the game because he came from a cricket family as well, you know. All of his uncles, his uncle called Noel Brooms played for Barbados. And Noel Brooms used to be, you know, like nowadays when you have a test match and you will have a 12th man from some club or something. Every time West Indies came to Barbados, Noel Brooms used to be the 12th man because he was literally the best fielder in Barbados at the time.
Right.
But growing up at Ellerslie School and playing for Ellerslie and playing for Barbados together and so on, even in under 19s, Henry Brooms was the best. He understood the game from a very young age. He knew what he was doing with the ball from a very young age. He had captaincy potential, so I'm not surprised now that he's chairman of selectors for Barbados and doing a great job. You know, so he's a guy that I can remember when I first started playing for Barbados. My first couple of games playing for Barbados, nerves would get you or whatever. You'll be having a bad spell, and it's not like now where there's 10 people in the stands. You know, back then in 92, 91, 92 when I started, Kensington Oval used to be full for a first class game. Wow. You know, but then I'm walking back to my mark and I'm bowling rubbish, to be honest. And I'm walking back to my mark and I could hear Henry Brooms' voice over everybody else's voice. Man, pick your knees up, do this, do that. You know what I mean? And and he was always that sort of. I think if he'd gone into coaching, I suspect he'd also been a good coach. And he was always a guy that was better than us. But I got lucky when I was young. When I made my debut, Malcolm Marshall was bowling at the other end. And that guy was my hero. Yeah. You know, I learned so much from him, and then I got to play with him, played against him when I was in South Africa playing for Border. He was playing for Natal, so we ended up playing against each other. If he came to East London where Border plays, he would, rather than stay in a hotel, he would come and stay with me. If I went to when I went to Durban, I would probably spend a lot of time in his house, and we would sit around having a drink and just talking the game, you know. And he, again, when I got into the Barbados team as a youngster, Sherwin Campbell, Philo Wallace was playing for Barbados at the time, Roland Holder, Sam Skeet. And we used to sit around and listen to Desmond Haynes was captain when I made my first in '91. Desmond Haynes was captain. We used to just sit around and listen to these guys talking, telling stories about playing in Australia, playing in England, playing in India, playing all over the world. Yeah. And you're thinking, you know, one day that's going to be me, you know. So certainly Desi was a massive influence as well because he was so open, so approachable. Right. You know, but Malcolm Marshall was certainly a hero of mine.
No,
do you think about that playing for Barbados and West Indies? Was it sort of short-lived for you, or did you sort of make a decision based on, I don't know, whatever factors to go and play in South Africa and England?
No, but you see, I played in South Africa before I played for West Indies. I played county cricket before I played for West Indies, and I felt like, you know, I feel like I should have played more. I played 2 test matches and 15 one-day internationals, but I felt like I could have played more. But at the time, the team was hard to pick. It was hard to get into. Mako was still playing. I know Mako just finished, I think, in '95, but Ambrose, Walsh, Bishop, both Benjamins were still around. Andy Cummings was trying to make the team as well. Tony Greer was still around. The team, they had a lot of good fast bowlers, Hamish Anthony, all these guys were coming on the scene as well. They had a lot of good fast bowlers, and the team was hard to make at the time. And if you didn't, there was a period there where I thought, like, because the way I look at things is, after Marshall finished, Ambrose and Walsh took over. I'm playing county cricket. I'm playing cricket in South Africa. I'm gaining all that experience and all that knowledge. So when Ambrose and Walsh's time, one of them, when they finished, I feel like myself, Vasbert Drakes, who were playing in county cricket at the time, Cameron Cuffey, I felt like we would be able to step in and carry on what they were doing, But then you get to you play 2 test matches, and then I picked up an injury in the '96 World Cup that ruled me out for a while. I ended up having surgery on a groin problem. And then you get to, you will know what selection is like in the Caribbean. You sort of get to 28, 29, and you feel like you've been around for a long time, but you haven't played. And then all these young guys, the Merv Dillons and those guys are coming up behind, and the selectors are like, hang on a minute, this guy's nearly 30 now and he's not played, so we'll move him on and we'll get somebody else, And I feel like this skipped the generation of certainly of knowledge and experience. I went to Rayon King and Merv Dillon and those guys a little too early, in my opinion. But when I was growing up in Spring Head and you told me that I was going to play 1 match for the West Indies, that'd have been over the moon. So to be able to play 2 test matches and 15 one-day internationals was a dream.
Yeah.
So do you think that there's, I guess, lack of mentorship in West Indies cricket, for example? Because for me, I just don't understand how you have the likes of Sir Garfield Sobers, Sir Vivian Richards, all these guys still alive, may not be as active as they once were, may not be able to contribute on a daily basis, but you can't not have them involved. That's the way I look at it. I think that each of them should be attached to West Indies cricket, and all of these former players should be attached to regional franchises as well, whether it's they come in and do something once a month, once a week, who's able, whatever the case is. But because once these guys pass, that knowledge is gone, and we're not going to be able to regain that knowledge as West Indian cricketers. So I feel like we're missing a huge opportunity right now in terms of transfer of knowledge, where other countries have that sort of system.
I think certainly there's a place for those guys. I can remember when I was in charge of West Indies cricket as a coach. I got Desmond in as a batting coach. I got Security in as a bowling coach. I can remember we used to have camps at 3Ws in Barbados, and I would get Sigari to come down, and he doesn't have to go and throw balls in the nets, but he can sit and observe batsmen and then have conversations with them and so on, and try to bridge that gap. I agree that there's always been a lack of mentorship in West Indies cricket. You would have had it when you played, and even when I played, I was lucky that I had Malcolm Marshall, Desmond Haynes, Gordon Greenwich. They were in the team when I made my debut for Barbados, so I've got those guys to lean on. I can ask questions. I was always a very curious youngster. When it comes to information, that's how I got to where I got to, because I was not afraid to ask a question, and seek out relevant information that I felt like I needed to know to improve myself as a cricketer and as a person as well, But I feel like for a long time we haven't really utilized or maximized the resources that we have in the region. And therefore, that's why we feel like we need to go overseas and find coaches and mentors and whatever. But there's a lot of good resources in the Caribbean that perhaps don't get utilized.
I sort of wanted to ask you a little bit about you mentioned there about going to South Africa and county cricket.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, what were the massive benefits that you felt that you took from going to South Africa and then playing in England, especially county cricket? Because at that point there, the overseas players, there was top international cricketers at that time.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you see, the West Indies has always and still has fantastic talent.
Yeah.
And if you go back to even in the 60s and look at West Indies cricket, the best West Indies cricketers came to England and played, whether it be county cricket or certainly club cricket. You know, when I first came to England in 1991 to play league cricket in Bolton, every team in the Lancashire League had a West Indian.
Yeah.
And all of our best players, all the names that I've mentioned before, always use England, whether it be county cricket or club cricket, as a finishing school. You know, Sagari and Rice Hall and all these great players came to England at some point. Two things. Obviously, you learn to play in different conditions and different opposition and so on. But you also get an experience that you wouldn't get in the Caribbean. You know. That the ECB 15 years ago probably changed the rules around overseas players, even in club cricket, and it's become a lot harder for people to come and play club cricket in England, which is a shame, I think. But for me, one of the biggest issues regarding our West Indies cricket is the fact that not many counties have West Indies overseas anymore. You know, again, in the 90s, a lot of counties would have a West Indian overseas. The way county cricket is now, where people can come in for 2 weeks and in and out and so on. I'm a county coach now, and it does my head in, because it's not. No. I like. My wife would tell you I'm a creature of habit. I want to know that if Powell is coming to play for me, he's there for 6 months, and I can build something, and that's how I like to operate, you know. And county cricket is not like that anymore, you know. The first year I was at Yorkshire, we had about 6 or 7 different overseas over the course of the season, and it's hard to know how long a guy is here for. Is he invested in what we're trying to do as a project and stuff like that? But certainly with regards to West Indies cricket, one of the biggest factors for me is the skill is still there, the talent is still there in the West Indies. I've been speaking to them for the 4 years that I was there. I spoke about upgrading facilities. You know, you want people to go and compete against the best in the world, and you're giving them substandard facilities to practice in. And then when you go to Australia or something, if you go to Adelaide Oval, the nets there, the guys don't want to come out of the nets because it's a dream. It's like, it's like batting in your living room. Yeah. But you only get that when you go away from home. When you're practicing at home, one ball is at your ankles and one ball is at your head, and the facilities aren't where they need to be. 2007 when the World Cup came and everybody built fancy new stadiums, most people fail to recognize the importance of the practice facilities. The practice facilities is probably more important than the playing facilities for developing young cricketer. And that's still a problem in the Caribbean now. Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on you. Actually, it's you played for my Lancashire League team, Haslingden.
Okay, great club, great people there.
Yeah. So my best mate of mine, he played with you. He won the league in 2003, and I think when you mentioned there about players coming into league cricket, the influence you've had on certain players who I played with, it's like passed around on generations. And I think that you mentioned there about rules being changed and stuff. It's a shame that more of these top players can't come in, because the actual knock-on effect it has is massive for cricket just in general. We're not talking about in England, we're talking about in general. And you're talking about you playing, sharing changing rooms with Malcolm Marshall and the impact it had on you. We want to be in a situation playing league cricket to share change rooms with players like yourself, and the chain just goes down because you just pass on that knowledge. So I just think that it's really important.
No, but I love my time at Hazelden because that was in a period where I actually wasn't even playing cricket, and then somebody said we need a sub pro for Hazzy. Can you come and sub pro for a weekend?
Yeah,
And that one weekend ended up turning into like half a season, and I had a
yeah,
fantastic time there. And I think we ended up winning something that season as well.
yeah. You won the league.
Some of my best experiences were I played for 1999. I played for a club called Leek Cricket Club in Staffordshire, North
Right, yeah.
South Cheshire League, and I can remember. I think it was '99 was World Cup in England, and they had a Pakistani overseas, and as soon as the World Cup started, he somehow disappeared. And they managed to get hold of me somehow and said, "Look, we need somebody to come and play this week." And it's the same thing. I had stopped playing cricket because I stopped playing and went doing all my coaching badges and everything. So they said, "We need somebody for this week," and I turned up the one week there, and I played. And then it's like, "Are you available the next week?" Which I would have been. So I said, "Yeah, I'm available the next." I ended up finishing that season, and then I ended up signing the next season for them and
Right.
I ended up playing 2.5 seasons, I think, of league cricket for them. And I got to tell you, that was some of the best times I had. And then the last season, I think maybe it was either the middle season or the last season. Um, we ended up winning the Staffs Cup. We won everything that we played for. We won all. We did the treble. We was doing the treble before Man United was doing the treble. You know, and that was literally so funny. And I still keep in contact with some of those guys now.
Yeah.
We still have every now and again we'll get on a call and reminisce about that season at Leek.
No, that's an important part of people's careers and
Yeah,
lives as well. It's so really influential.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So, Gibbo, what got you into coaching for life after cricket then? Because I've never said this to you, but I track a lot of things you do, and I think personally, from my experiences, I think that you are one of the three best coaches I've had, and I think that you're the best fast bowling coach I've seen. And I'll tell you why I say the fast bowling
Thank you.
coach in particular. The fast bowling coach in particular, if someone could get lucky once, maybe twice. But I've watched you at England the first time. Jimmy Anderson went number 1. You went to West Indies. Kemar Roach went number 7. You came back to England. Stuart Broad went number 1. You went to South Africa. Rabada went number 1. And then you sort of laid a foundation for Bangladesh's fast bowling group. I even looked at Bangladesh last night. Corey Collingwood's out there. I think he's a fantastic fast bowling coach too. So what sort of got you into coaching?
It's an interesting thing because like when I was still playing, I was always, like I said to you, from a young age, I was always curious. That's always been my nature. I want to find out things. So I'm not. I used to read quite a bit, but then I sort of like don't read as much as I used to. But I always will ask questions and try and find things out. So I was always curious about stuff. So while I was playing, I would get involved in coaching. I would sit and watch you back in the nets as a teammate, or I would try and see how borders are trying to get you out. And then I would say to you, "Do you know how these people are trying to get you out? Are you aware of this? Can you see the feel that they have?" And that sort of stuff. Then when I went to South Africa, I started doing little bits of coaching, not with this first team, but I started doing little bits of coaching with club teams and stuff like that. When I played in England, I would go and work with, on a Friday night, you got to go and coach the kids and so on. Then I realized, when it comes to coaching, when you're coaching kids, you have to be honest and you have to be really careful with the information you give.
Yeah.
So I pay attention to the language and how I speak to kids and so on. And then in 99, I think it was, I went on a level 3 course in England, at Lilleshall. And I would always say to any young player, like, because this is what happened for me. This is my experience. I went on that course and I'm sitting there and I'm learning all these things and I'm thinking, because I'd stopped playing. And I said to him, "Geez, I wish I knew this stuff when I was playing. For sure, it would have made me better." So from 99 to 2003, 2004, I just did my level 3. Then I got a job with the ECB as I was a national. ECB had these coaches called national coaches. Myself, Tim Boone, Andy Pick, Toby Radford, and there's a few other. Paul Fabris, he was a national coach as well, and we sort of ran age group cricket in our region. So the country was set up into regions. So I was in charge of cricket in the Northwest. So that is coaching up to under 16, and then also doing running coaching courses. So I used to run. I used to lecture on coaching courses. I used to tutor. I used to do an assessing on level 3 courses and stuff like that. And I'm learning all this stuff about myself and also about the game that I didn't even know, because growing up in the Caribbean, like, again, your coaches aren't necessarily coaches. Your coaches have been great players. They're not coaches. Yeah. They don't understand how to relay the information in a way to help you, the player, to dissect it and digest it, and then learn from it. They tell you what to do. I can tell you stories about Sandy. You will know these stories yourself, working with Andy Roberts, and stuff like that. They can tell you what to do, but when you ask them, but how? What do you mean? Or back in my day, you couldn't even ask why. Nowadays, asking why is a relevant question for a young player. Yeah. But back in my day, you couldn't even ask Andy why. You'll get sent out the nets if you ask him why. Yeah. It seems like you're talking back to him by asking him a simple why. Yeah. So I went on this level 3 in 99, 2000, I think it was, and then I did my level 4, 2000. 2002, 2003, I did my level 4. And then I got the opportunity to come back and play, because I stopped for like 3 years, I think it was. Between 2000 to 2004, I stopped. And I came back in 2004. And I just like applied all these things that I was learning. In that period, 2000 to 2004, I was working in the ECB Academy. Troy Cooley got me into fast bowling coaching. Right. When Troy Cooley and Rod Marsh took over the ECB Academy, myself and Kevin Shine were his first 2 disciples, let's say. We were the first 2 guys that really he took under his wing and started to really, that's where I started to delve really deeper into fast bowling coaching. Went on quite a few biomechanics workshops and so on to start to understand the mechanics of it. And language is important too, how you relate to people, and how people relate to yourself and stuff like that. And that's how I got into it. But fast bowling was always my main thing. I still absolutely love it now. I'm a head coach now, but I think when I came back to West Indies, I said to the board, I don't need a fast bowling coach. I'll do that myself. That will, sometimes you see coaches that they're the head coach. And of course, there's a lot that goes with being the head coach, but then sometimes you see the head coach is standing around for 4 hours of a next session, not really doing anything and talking to, and that's great. But I felt like, well, I still want to carry on being the bowling coach, because I feel like at the time I was doing a really good job at developing bowlers, and you can't win a test match or a first class match if you can't get 20 wickets. And I want to be able to impact on those guys to help them get 20 wickets to win the match. So I'll always get, Toby was the batting coach when I was in South Africa, in the West Indies. Sorry, very good batting coach, Toby, I got to say. But then I'll manage the bowlers. Like I said, I was working with Broad and Anderson and all these guys, and you learn a lot of things from those guys as well, and a lot of it is just how you deal with people and how you manage people.
I sort of want to ask you there about, obviously working with the Kieran mentioned there, the players you've worked with.
Yeah.
What would you say is the constant trait that all those top bowlers have, not from necessarily an ability wise, but from a mental perspective and how their mind works?
It's a difficult question, because if you look at Broad and Anderson, for instance, the one thing is longevity, because they played for a very long time. And if you look at them now, both of them are still curious.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Broad is still trying to learn up to the back end of his career. The last couple of years when people are saying he's finished, he's gone away, he's shortened his run up. Then he's adding skills. Then he's adding an outswinger at this late stage in his life. Jimmy Anderson, the same thing. I mean, Jimmy Anderson is absolutely phenomenal what he's doing at 40, 41.
Yeah.
Still getting it down at above 80 mile an hour, still swinging it. Everybody said he had a bad Ashes. If you look at the first test, and a lot of these things, when you get to that stage, confidence is a big thing. The game at Edgbaston in the second innings, Khawaja makes, what did he get, 100, I think, Khawaja in the second innings?
Yeah.
But Jimmy nicks him off in the pocket, and Johnny doesn't go for the catch.
Yep.
Remember Johnny left one. If he catches that ball, what happens to Jimmy's confidence? And suddenly the series could be a very different series for him, and that's the way it goes. But those guys, fantastically talented, but curious, wants to learn, want to improve, very, very competitive. Very competitive. One of the things that I pass on to every fast bowler that I work with, that Malcolm Marshall pass on to me, when the game is on the line, you have to be bowling. The best bowler have to be bowling. West Indies played South Africa in the test match in 1992, the first test match after readmission. And South Africa has got the West Indies on the ropes. I don't know if you can remember the game, but South Africa need, 80 runs on the last day to win. And Desmond Hayes, Richie's captain, and Desmond Hayes says, listen, I don't know if it was Desmond Hayes that said it, but somebody said, this is a story that Desmond Hayes relayed to me. He said, listen, whether we win or lose, we're going to win and lose with Ambrose and Walsh. These are our two best bowlers. They must bowl every ball until the game is finished. Ambrose and Walsh bowl out South Africa and the last morning. I won the test match for West Indies. So when the game is on the line, your best bowlers have to stand up. And when you look at their careers, when you look at Anderson's career, when you look at Jimmy's career, Brody's career, the impact that they've had on games when it looked like England are behind the 8 ball, those guys will step up all the time, and that's what you need from your best players.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Gibbo, what are your I guess, future plans on coaching? Because you've got a hell of a resume so far. You've won a World Cup already. You've coached South Africa. You've been in Bangladesh, England, obviously at Yorkshire now. What do you see for yourself going forward?
I want to get it right at Yorkshire. We've had 2 tough years. Last year we're having a really good season, and then halfway through the season we get 48 points taken away, and that just took the wind out of everybody's sails. We had a real opportunity to get promoted because the first year I came, we got demoted into the second division, and that sort of points deduction just took the wind out of us. And we've gone and looked at it, and we thought we looked at everything that happened. Had we not lost the 48 points, we would have ended up in third place. So you look at the sort of mental aspect of losing those points in the middle of the season as well. There's a strong possibility that we could have gone straight back up. It didn't happen for us, but from the time I came, I spoke to Darren Goff, who's the director of cricket, and I said, look, it's not going to be a 1-year situation or 2 years. It might take 3, 4, 5 years. And I want to get it right here before I think about anything else. I feel like Yorkshire is a massive club. And I'm very, even in these tough circumstances, I'm still very, very honored to be the head coach at. When I live in Chesley Street, and I don't drive down to Headingley every day. But when there are a lot of people that get out to the bed and they have to go to work. And, oh, Jesus, I've got to go to work. I hate it. When I get up from my bed and I'm driving, I think I'm going to drive to Headingley. Remember, I listened to Marshall bowling with a broken hand, taking wickets at Headingley. It's an iconic venue, and to think that you're the head coach of the team at an iconic venue like this is an absolute privilege. You know what I mean? So I really enjoy that. And we got a good young team now. We got some very good young players. Sometimes in county cricket, when you look at your roster, and you look at Root and Bairstow and Milan and Brook, Last year we had Willie, and you look at all these guys and you think, wow, we got a phenomenal squad. But then you think, the way for international cricket is you don't even see some of these guys. Last year we had Johnny for a number of games only because he was rehabbing from his injuries. As soon as he gets back and he gets fit, we don't see him again, and that's fine. That's international cricket. Those guys' aspirations, they've sort of reached their aspirations in terms of using county cricket to play international cricket. So I think this year we might have Joe for a bit, because Joe said he's not going to the IPL this year, so we're going to have him for a bit. And I certainly, from my point of view, I can't wait to have him around so that our young guys can see how the best batsman in the world carries himself. How he prepares and stuff like that. So it's going to be amazing to have him at the start of the year.
In terms from a coaching perspective, you mentioned before about how bringing overseas players in and they're here for 4 weeks at a time, and they go and things. How is the coaching different from international cricket to county cricket, where you've got international wise, you've got a set group of players for a set period of time?
Yeah.
Into sort of like managing Joe Root coming back in, or Bairstow coming back in, or an overseas 4 weeks. How do you sort of try and plan all that in, if that makes sense?
With great difficulty sometimes, because again, sometimes you think you've got a guy, and then at the last minute the ECB says, "Oh, this guy is resting." Because at the top end you're managing people's workloads. At my end, where we're trying to win games to try and get promoted or whatever. You're going to have a guy this week, but you might not have him next week. So now you've got to go to the guy who's going to miss out and say, look, listen, unfortunately, this is a situation, but I need you to stay sharp, because next week you might be straight back in. But the thing is, for me, having those guys come and play is important for county cricket, I think. It's important for young county cricketers. I got some young players at Yorkshire, that young batters. It's important for them to spend time around Joe Root, the likes of Joe Root and whatever.
So you mentioned there obviously about the importance of Joe Root coming back, or players that's international players coming back into county cricket. You were saying how important that is.
I think it's important for those guys. Not so much. It's not even a case of giving back. International cricket is so like, there's so much pressure around international cricket. I always take all those senior guys, I take them back to when they first started, or when they played on the 19s, when they were just playing for fun with their mates and whatever. Because sometimes, and a lot of people will tell you, sometimes international cricket is not fun. Because there's so much pressure and you're not performing well, and then you've got 20 guys in the media picking apart your game and stuff like that, and it's not fun. So I always think, go back to where you started, where you just played for fun. And I can remember when I first went to South Africa in 2017. So South Africa played in England in sort of August. Then at the back end of September, they were playing a series against Bangladesh. So there's no cricket between that period. Faf du Plessis was the captain, and I can remember saying, so there was one series of Sunfoil 4-day games to be played, and I insisted on everybody playing that series of games before the series. And Faf is like, "Coach, you sure?" I'm like, "Well," I said, "Yeah, I think it's important that you go and play. There's no pressure there. There's hardly anybody watching anyway. You just go, and because the best net is in the middle. I can throw balls to you in the net, but it's not the same as you going and spending 2-3 hours in the middle with the field set and bowlers trying to get you out and so on." So I said, everybody must go and play, Then he went and played. He got runs. Hashim Amla got runs. Aidan Markram got runs. Dean Elgar got runs. And then when we played against Bangladesh in Potterstone the first game, we got like 600. Guys got loads of runs, and then I can remember having a conversation afterwards with him, and he said, "Coach, that was literally like the best. That was the best decision ever, because I went there to play, and there's no pressure. As soon as the test starts, there's 10 cameras around the ground, and suddenly there's a different game now. And if you're not in a great place mentally, or your game is not in a great place technically, you nick off the first over or something, and suddenly the commentators are saying, well, he's been out of form for a year now. He's made 5 knots in his last 10 innings or whatever, and the pressure is ramped up. But when you can go back to, even when I was playing, I always loved going back and playing club cricket.
Yeah.
When I played first class cricket, I always loved going back and playing for my club in Barbados and stuff like that, because it's just so in a sense it's back to basics cricket. You know what I mean? Without the pressure, and it's great fun.
It's really funny you should say that, because last week me and Karen were discussing about Josh Butler, and we were saying,
Yeah.
the best thing for him might be at this moment in time is a little bit of a break.
Yeah, for sure.
Just
For
at
sure,
home.
yeah.
The volume of cricket he's played, he's come from there straight from the World Cup to India. He's now, in the West Indies, and maybe he just needs a
Yeah.
little break, a bit of time with family, because, cricket and traveling around the world, the importance of family is probably a massive part of helping you and, and helping your performance.
Yeah.
So like keeping you mentally in the right frame of mind.
Absolutely. And I think the way I look at cricket now, like, cricket has become it's just such a different game, and everything revolves around money.
Yeah.
Like I said before, about all these different franchise tournaments all over the world now. Every month there's a different tournament somewhere.
Yeah.
As a county coach, you see it because somebody wants the NOC to go here, to go there, to go.
Yeah.
Everywhere, and the ICC has to get a hold of it. Otherwise, it's just going to become worse. But at the same time, look at it. Look at this. Right? Imagine this. West Indies, and it happened in 2012 exactly the same way. Australia wins the World Cup just now in 2 months ago in India. Absolutely unbelievable situation, because India is playing the best cricket you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And they look like they're going to win it. The Aussies win the World Cup. Like, I follow the NBA and all this sort of stuff. You win the World Cup, or you win the World Series, or so on, everybody goes back. There's a celebration. If Man United wins the Champions League, they come back the next day. There's a
Right.
parade through the streets or whatever.
Yeah.
Australia wins the World Cup. What happens? Half the team goes home, half the team stays in India, because there's a 3-match T20 series.
Yeah.
Is that 3-match T20 series absolutely necessary, or is that just to fill a gap to create some more revenue for whether it be the BCCI or Cricket Australia? It's not necessary. Then you see Maxwell there, and Maxwell would rather be anywhere else in the world, but there right now he'd rather be
Yeah.
home with his family celebrating just winning the World Cup, and what an amazing achievement. But
Yeah.
nobody's been able to celebrate that achievement. The Aussies didn't go home and celebrate, did they? They go home.
No.
Half the team go home, half the team stays in Australia, in India, and then before you know it, when they get home, then there's another series around the corner. So, but again, and that takes the fun out of it. That's why I'm saying there's no fun.
Yeah.
The same situation with Josh now. Josh had the team had a tough World Cup. They come home, they've got a week and a half, then they go to the Caribbean. The other thing that frustrates me as a coach is, okay, they've just had a terrible World Cup. They're going to the Caribbean to play a series. They flew in 3 days before the first game. There's no warm-up games.
No.
You know what I mean? So you've come back from the World Cup. Yes, everybody is tired, but now you're going to a different set of conditions.
Yeah.
There's no preparation. So there's no wonder that they lost the way they lost, because they have to spend time getting used to the conditions. 95, when I got picked for West Indies to come to England on my first tour, we played 13 county games.
Wow.
The tour was the beginning of May to the beginning of September. We played 6 tests. We played 3 one-day internationals. We played 6 test matches. We played 13 county games in between all of those test matches and so on.
Wow.
We were here the whole summer. You
Right.
know, when Andy Flowers' team won the Ashes in Australia,
Yeah.
they were there either 4 or 5 weeks before the first test.
Yeah.
Because when they've done their research and you research what do you need to do to win in Australia? 2 weeks isn't enough to acclimatize.
Yeah.
So they went over there. They played 4 county games, 4 state games before the first test. They played the first game in Brisbane, where the first test match is going to be. Then they went off and they played in different parts of it, but they're acclimatizing all the time. They're getting up to speed. They're getting the sleeping patterns right and all of this. And then by the time they come back to
Yeah.
Brisbane for the first test, they're ready to go then. And then they ended up winning that series.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like that side of preparation, nowadays there's none. If you look at the World Cup, before the World Cup, before England left to go to the World Cup, they played a series against New Zealand and they won. Then they had a series um, against Ireland, and they
Ireland,
rested
yeah.
all the players.
Yeah,
They
they did.
rested all the players and they played the B team.
Yeah.
Then they go to India, and not everybody's where they want to be with the game. And then you look at the thing is, when you go to a tournament, there's two things you want from your team, especially your batsmen. You want your batsmen to be informed and confident.
Yeah.
So you look at South Africa. South Africa had a lot of good and India informed batsmen and very confident. Quinton de Kock scored 400s. You
Yeah.
look at England. England got fantastic players as well, but there's nobody with any great form, and then suddenly everybody's lost confidence because you pick the team for the first test and you think, right, let's go and play for the first game. Sorry, let's go and play.
Yeah.
You lose. You made a good score against New Zealand, and then New Zealand knocked it off very easy. Then you panic and change the team.
Yeah.
Then you lose. Then you panic and change the team again. Then you lose, and then you're in a vicious circle. Then.
I suppose that's what that we mentioned there about the change of the team, and you've mentioned, in this past podcast we've been doing is confidence. Change the team must remove confidence within that group of players,
absolutely.
because the fear of that, the ability of thinking I'm going to get dropped if I do this or that thing. I think that constantly driving and giving people confidence, if you're changing the team, will have a massive impact.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it erodes your confidence, and everybody's looking over the shoulders, and we don't know who's going to be playing, and you feel like, well, if I don't make runs, I'm going to get dropped. So now, sometimes then what happens is that the where you want to play go out the window. You might sit down as a team and say, right, boys, this is how we're going to approach it. We're going to go hell for leather. We're playing basketball or whatever. We're taking the game to the opposition.
Yeah.
But suddenly you think, well, Jesus, we just lost the game and this guy got dropped. So, if I don't make runs, I'm going to get dropped. So suddenly I'm going to make my runs first and then play the way they want me to play after.
Yeah.
And that takes away from what everybody is trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, yeah. How do you sort of see the current situation with the West Indies at the minute?
To be honest, look, I mean, I'm still a West Indian and still a West Indies fan, but I don't really follow it as much as I used to. The one thing I'm not sure about, I don't like split coaches.
Right. Okay.
That's my thing. I'm not a great believer in split coaches. If a coach, whether it is Sammy or whoever is, if you think that this guy is the best guy to do the job, give him the job. Let him choose the support staff. And then when there's a clash or whatever, then we decide which is the most important place for me as a head coach to be. Is it here with the one day side or over there with the test side? If the one day side is playing, if we got a World Cup next year, for instance, there's a T20 World Cup next year. So if the test side is going to Bangladesh and the one day side have a T20s against England, obviously I'm going to try and align myself to the T20 side, because we're building a team for the T20 World Cup. So the series in Bangladesh, my trusted number 2 or whatever can go and take the team there. The other thing is, I don't think that West Indies play enough cricket.
Yeah, we've said that many times. Yeah,
I don't think they play enough cricket to have 2 coaches. Australia just won the World Cup. They've got 1 coach. Straight up, remember we just said that 5 minutes ago. The team half the team went home and half the team stayed. So the head coach went home and spent some time with his family or whatever, and his number 2 stayed in India with the T20 side. when they come back to when they get back to Australia now that they started against Pakistan and Australia, he's had a couple of weeks off. He's fresh. He's ready to go. And
Yeah.
but I don't believe in split coaches. I still think I watched a game. Like I was in Barbados last week. I saw the game. This young Matthew Ford looks a good player.
Yeah.
Antonez looks a good player. So the talent is. People ask me this question all the time, like this, and I feel like it's such a nonsense because they talk about like, oh, is everybody's going to basketball now and whatever. Basketball was always there. Basketball was there when I was playing. And what I say to people is, there's nobody that grew up, nobody playing in the NBA with the West Indian heritage that grew up in the West Indies and went to America and made it in basketball. Not that I know of. If you were born in America and your family moved to America early and you were born in America, you're born into the basketball culture in America, yes. You know what I mean? But nobody that like say I went to school with or whatever. I went to school with some good basketball players, and when I was young coming up, there were some good basketball players in Barbados, and they went to some guys got scholarships to go to school in America and play basketball. When they got there, they were playing in the C team
Yeah.
because the basketball culture is so strong.
Right.
So basketball isn't taking anybody away from cricket like people keep trying to say all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, we're still plagued with the same poor administration and those sort of things. Poor community. Look at this. Just recently, now there's poor communication around the Darren Bravo situation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're still plagued with those same things that we were plagued with 10, 15, 20 years ago. Nothing's changed. It doesn't seem that anything is changing around that situation.
No. I wanted to ask you a little bit. You mentioned at the very start of the pod about obviously representing West Indies in 2 Test matches. Do you look back at that at all, where you could have done certain things differently at all, or ultimately do you have any regrets over certain things?
No, I don't have any regrets over my career. Like I said to you, like if I had played one game, I'd have been proud of that. I know that I could have played more, but again, there's certain things in cricket, especially because cricket, you're relying on selection. When I look back at the times where I wasn't selected, it's not because I wasn't performing. I performed for Barbados. Most years I played for Barbados, I performed well enough to get picked. The selectors chose other people ahead of me, and that's there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
But I don't look back and think I wish I did this or I wish I did that or whatever. I know that I could have played more. I sat there as a West Indian cricketer when certain teams were picked, and I'm like, how did I not make that team? And then I go and play cricket in South Africa and be the MVP in tournament in South Africa, and can't get picked for West Indies. I come and play county cricket and get 60 wickets in a season and make 700 runs and still can't get picked for West Indies. So when I look back, my non-selection wasn't based on the fact that I wasn't performing. It was other factors, and there's nothing you can do about that. But I don't look back and think that I'm not. The thing is, in West Indies cricket, there are a lot of people that end up being very bitter about the way things finish for them. I'm not one of those guys at all. I'm very appreciative to have played 2 Test matches and 15 one-day international. I played 15 games and I got one game was rained out, so there's 14 completed games. I got 34 wickets in 14 completed games and didn't get picked again. So it's not a performance issue.
No. Do you think that what you touched on there has played a massive part in the success you've had as a coach? So from a standing perspective of like, there's only certain things you can look after. The rest of it, you're in control of what you're in control of.
Absolutely. And the other thing I look at it, and the way I look at it all the time, me and my mom, we talk about this all the time, there are people that have gotten to where they are because of who they are, because of their name, and so that's not me in a sense. I'm not sure I'm even explaining it right. You know what I mean? What I've done in the game, certainly, especially with regards to my coaching and where I've gotten to, isn't because of what I did for West Indies or whatever. It's because of me as a person, who I am as a person, how I speak to people, how I relate to people. how I sit Pow down and have a honest conversation with him, and stuff like that. Um, so like I said, I think I could have played a lot more for West Indies, but at the end of the day, like I'm really proud of what I've done in my career, where my career has taken from where I started, where I came from,
Yeah.
in a little place called Spring Head to where I am now. I'm very proud of what I've done as a certainly as a player and as a coach, and I'm still coaching, so there's still more to come.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, but can I just ask you about this? Because I know you're an avid golfer, and it seems to be the thing for cricketers these days.
Yeah.
What's this whole golf thing about? Because
Have you started yet?
I have not started. My
No,
wife is
well,
trying to get
listen.
me to start, and I just don't understand why on an off day from standing in the sun 10 to 5, I should go and do
Yeah.
the same.
No, but you see, this is the thing, right? And you're missing the point completely. You know what? I was where you are when I was playing in South Africa. I was in Kimberley. I was playing it for Greenwood and West in Kimberley, and it's like 35, 36, 37 every day. The sun's hot. So we go to practice, and I'd be like, "Jeez, I can't wait to get out of this sun and go home." And all the guys that I was playing with would be going to the golf course, and I'm like, "No, what is this all about?"
Mhm.
Um, and then I remember we went on an away trip somewhere, and where we were staying um, there was a golf course and a driving range. So the guys were at the driving range, and I'm sitting there watching them hitting ball. I've never hit balls. Back growing up back in the day in Barbados, there's Sandy Lane Golf Club, and that's it. And I can't get on Sandy Lane Golf. I can now, but back then I couldn't get on Sandy. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, jeez. I'm watching these guys hitting balls, and then the guys are like, "Yeah, Gibbo, come and have a go, come and have a go." And I'm like, "Nah, it's okay. I'm watching." Because that's how you start to understand things about yourself, and that's how I learn. Don't
Yeah.
tell me how to do something. Show me how to do it once, and I can do it. So I'm watching these guys, and then I picked out the guy. This guy was the best guy. A guy called Dion Christ, fast bowler. He came over to play for Yorkshire in the 2000s, and he was crunching these balls, and then he gave me his 7-iron, and all he did was show me the grip, show me how to grip the club. I was 30 years old at the time when I started, and I swung that 7-iron, and I hit it right in the screws. And they're like, you're lying. How can you hit the ball like this? You said you never played before. I said, I swear to you, I never played before. So he said, try again, try again. So I put it down again. Bang, I hit this 7-iron. And from then the next week I went and bought a set of clubs. I was hooked. And then I'm coaching West Indies, and I said, I'm playing golf every minute I get. So I would cancel practices sometimes to go and play golf. And I'm like, Sam, Sam, come, you gotta come and play golf. You gotta, golf, no, coach, I ain't got no time for no golf, sun too hot and whatever. Now if you follow him on Instagram and so on, he can't get enough of the game, but he's playing well at them. I played with him last week in Barbados.
He
He's playing well at the moment. He plays every day.
he won an OECS championship probably 2 months ago or
Yes.
something.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was in St. Kitts, actually. Yeah,
He's telling me now he's a national player in two sport. He's a two sport national player. He represented St. Lucia in golf and cricket. So,
yeah.
but he absolutely loves it. So, but now a lot more of the guys are playing, and you'll play eventually. You're just wasting time. You'll get into it eventually. You'll see.
So what would you say the benefits of golf for a cricketer? Obviously, it takes you away, but
Yeah,
are there any
yeah, but
correlations between the swing and stuff?
not so much. Not so much. It helps. The thing is, it helps you to keep your head still, if anything. But no. But the thing for me is a mental thing. Is just get away from the game, because especially at the international level where there's so much pressure, just get you away from cricket. And we go on the golf course. There's two things we don't talk about cricket, and we turn our phones off.
Hmm.
yeah.
So for 4 hours, it's just you with your mate playing golf, having a bit of fun. You might have a little $5 bet on it or something, just to increase the competitiveness in it or whatever. But it just takes you away from the game a bit. Just takes your mind away from cricket. Absolutely fantastic. Like now, at Yorkshire, everybody plays.
Right.
So when we go on some away trips or whatever, but the schedule is so tight. There's hardly any space. But anytime we get the opportunity, we get like there's more than half the team going playing when we get the opportunity, and everybody loves it.
No. I just wanted to ask you a bit of a random question in terms of going back into something you mentioned there about split coaches.
Yeah,
I know Kieran's definitely mentioned this to me before in the past that he doesn't believe in red ball cricketers and white ball cricketers. Do you
yeah.
sort of agree with that statement in the fact that if you're a cricketer, if you play, you're a good player, whether it be red ball or white ball.
Yeah, I do because and I use David Warner as an example. Warner came into cricket, T20 cricket, then he played 50 over cricket. Then people said he can't be a test cricketer, and he's got a fantastic test record. He's just got another 160
Yeah,
this week in a test match. You know what I'm saying? I
yeah,
think um, so. When I look at West Indies cricket now, where West Indies cricket is, um, and I look at certainly with the 50 over team, maybe not the one now, but the one that didn't qualify for the World Cup. I think your best 4-day batsman should be able to play 50 over cricket. Might not be your best T20 players play Test cricket, but your best 4-day batsman, your best Test batsman should be able to play 50 over cricket.
yeah,
So the fact that you know, the fact that England are picking the likes of Crawley and Duckett now, I love that because Crawley against Australia in a Test series, his strike rate was 100.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
so there's no reason why he can't bat in a 50 over game.
yeah,
If he can strike at 100 in a Test match, Duckett plays 360. There's no reason why Duckett can't be a good white ball player, and I'm sure he's going to be, but there's no
yeah.
reason why he can't be. So I agree. I don't believe that you can only some T20s. I think is different
Right.
because T20s requires a different skill. Um, but certainly 50 over cricket. Your best test batsman, your best 4-day batsman, guys that make runs consistently well in 4-day cricket should be able to play 50 over cricket.
Yeah. And then I just want to lead on to this, obviously, with your current situation at Yorkshire. So with you having the three formats that you play at the minute, how do you sort
Yeah.
of go into this from a pre-season perspective, leading into it? Do you sort of how how far in advance do you start your preparations for each specific tournament?
Okay. So with us at Yorkshire, we have so in the winter like now,
Yeah.
just Friday, Thursday actually was our last day. We have a 6-week block before Christmas.
Right.
And that's mostly strength and conditioning.
Right.
That's mostly strength and conditioning. Our trainer is brilliant. We find different ways to get the guys training, and they don't even know they're getting fit. They will take him to a boxing gym, and some guy that trains boxers will do some stuff with him or whatever. We
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
a gymnast in or somebody like that to come in and break it up.
Yeah.
The monotony of just training. And then we will do a little bit of cricket in that space as well. And then after Christmas, what we will have is white ball weeks and red ball weeks.
Right. Okay.
We'll have another 6-week block. So we might do 2 weeks of red ball where people are checking their alignment and stuff like that. And then we will do a white ball week where it is just get the bowling machines up. What's your hitting? Do you know exploring your hitting areas? Ramps. One of the things that we're going to do a lot of this year is ramps because we're not a very good team with flicking the ball over the short. So we're going to do a lot
Right.
of that this winter.
Right.
So that's all planned already.
Right.
And it's just a case of letting the guys really enjoy Christmas now, have a good Christmas break.
Yeah.
We start again on the second of January. And we will start with 2 weeks of red ball cricket, and
Right.
then we'll have a week of white ball cricket, and then we'll have another week of red ball cricket, and then we'll finish with a week of a white ball cricket, and then that will take us to the middle of Feb,
Right.
So when it's half term, then we'll break up again for half term. Guys will have a week to, with their families and kids and whatever. Then we come back in and we've got about a 2 week period before we go to Abu Dhabi for pre-season. So that's all set already.
Right. Oh, cool. Interesting that. Yeah. Cool.
No, Gibber, I think it's been
Yeah.
great having you on. I just wanted to do a quick fire. You don't have to give it too much thought. First thing that comes to your head, just 4 questions. Favorite ground to play at?
Cape Town,
Favorite food?
Indian.
If you could be a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Ooh, Jesus. Invisible Man, probably.
Favorite cricketer growing up?
Malcolm Denzel Marshall.
There you go.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been really great listening to you.
No problem at all. I've seen some of the stuff you guys are doing. You guys are doing great work, so carry on.
Oh,
Keep going.
much appreciated. Much appreciated. So thank you very
Smack,
much.
smack,
So,
smack. We all got to find things to do after cricket, don't we?
well,
Well, I'm doing heavy stuff in the media at the moment, so
Yeah. No, that's good. I had a little stint on TNT last couple. I did the first game on TNT, and I really enjoyed it. I sort of like to get into that side of things as well. I think maybe I have a face for radio more than TV, but still, I'd love to get involved in a little bit more of that commentary, comments, giving comments, and sharing
yeah.
your views on the game side of things. You know what I mean?
I
No,
think
that's
that
good.
as players we have obviously a different perspective on the game. Like
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
a general fan will watch the game and look at certain things, whereas players we look for different
yeah,
cues. So it's different the way I guess we can feed back the game to
yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah.
I like
It
that.
just, I mean, it's frustrating when you see. To me, I always find it frustrating when you have guys that have played and how harsh they are with the critique. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Because it
yeah,
seems to me like they're forgetting how hard the game is,
yeah,
yeah.
or how much pressure there is.
Or the mistakes
Uh,
they would have made as players as well.
yeah, so that frustrates me. But the other thing that I'm happy for you with, and I got to tell you this, because you know, a lot of cricketers wait till they finish or get finished and then think about what next.
yeah,
And that's why when you guys asked me about coaching, I always knew from the time I was playing that that's the way I was going to go. I always wanted to stay in the game. So I always knew when I was doing my badges while I was playing.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
trying to do all those things alongside of playing, so that when I played, and I was lucky when I finished playing for Durham in 2007, in September when the season finished. That same year, I got the call to come and go to with England to Sri Lanka.
Right.
So the season finished like the 24th of September. The 29th of September, we flew to Sri Lanka with, I was a coach that same month
Yeah.
after finishing. You know what I mean? I was an international coach that same month after finishing, and then it's just carried on from 2007 to now.
So now, yeah. Well, I know Karen mentioned there about getting into the commentary side of things, but the insight that I picked up just from listening to Karen over the past 12 months, and obviously even with this episode with you, is people want to be listening to what professionals or former professionals know and their perspective.
Yeah,
Their perspective is more, accurate and real life than, if I
yeah,
do a commentary on it, for instance. So,
yeah, and I feel like over the time, and Karen will be able to tell you, you know, I feel like I've been as a coach, like I was as a player. When I played, I gave honest effort.
yeah,
You know, I went out on the field and I gave honest effort. And I wanted to be involved in the game all the time. And I feel like as a coach, the one thing that the player want from you is honesty.
yeah,
Sometimes even if it's difficult, they still want you to be honest.
yeah, yeah,
Nobody wants you to bullshit them or talk around a situation. They give you straight. And I feel like over the course of time, I've been that way. Not everybody responds to honesty very well, but at least you're true to yourself when it comes to that, and that's what I've been able to do, I think, with my coaching.
No, definitely. Thank you. Like I said, thank you so much. Thoroughly.
No problem.
So,
No
yeah.
worries. Keep up the good work, Smack.
Thanks, Gibble. Good luck
All
with
right,
the
man.
next season and wishing you the
Thank you.
best.
Thank you. Keep well. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.